welcome to another episode of Synergy Talks. Excuse me, people. I'm Mr. J Synergy, and I'm reporting live and direct. Today's edition will be Synergy News, world news that is, about the situation going on in the Gaza Strip, in Israel. The Israelis and the Palestinians are at war once again. Apparently, as we all know, the Palestinians and the extremist groups, the Hamas, attacked the Israelis on the National Muslim Day in Jerusalem, which is a big turn of events in history if you know anything about spirituality and things of the world in the last days, or however you want to look at it. Whatever you believe in the book of Revelation, it does talk about a lot of things. Disease, famine, sickness, rumors of war, mass killings, people killing kids, all type of evil things going on. And it's just another one to add to it. It's real unfortunate, but people, y'all better open your eyes. Israeli said they are not going to stop attacking. They said they didn't deserve the attacks. Hamas started this, and they said they're going to finish this to the end this time. So this is real crazy. What this comes down to, people, is the ancient history over the lines of Israel that's drawn up in the Middle East. It's been going on for thousands of years, and I think this time it might meet a head. A lot of cries are coming out to the United States saying we should intervene, but at the same time, Israel said they're not backing down. So that puts a lot of things in position as far as with the political world. Once again, the airstrikes have picking up over there in the Gaza Strip between Israel and Palestine. And the Israelis said they have no plans of slowing down the attacks. I don't know, man. However you feel about it, whatever spiritual side you're on, one thing we do know, killing and war is ugly. You have no idea what type of things go on, what type of casualties and death and diseases and pollutions. And then it starts a lot of tribal infiltration of that area because there's nothing there that's structured. Everything is destroyed. So make sure, once again, that y'all don't live in the matrix. Keep your eyes open, especially in these days. Watch for spirits, follow your gut instincts, and do not live in the matrix. Always remember as well, people, that the fall will always be harder than the come up. So if you think it's hard getting there, just imagine what you have to face when you got to go back down that ladder. So with that being said, keep the Mamu mentality. And also make sure when you get there, you stay afloat so you don't even have to worry about the fall. I'm Mr. J Synergy. Much love to everybody out there that's supporting the channel and spreading the news and subscribing. Stay blessed out there. Stay humble. Stay focused. Don't live in the matrix. And make sure y'all stay tuned to the end. Hit that like button. Until we meet again, make sure y'all stay in good graces. I'm Mr. J Synergy. Much love to everybody. Peace.
Overnight launch of another barrage of airstrikes on Gaza. Israel says it destroyed 9 miles of Palestinian militant tunnels and the homes of 9 alleged Hamas commanders this morning. Gaza residents were awakened today by what's described as the heaviest attack since the conflict broke out a week ago. Meanwhile, Israeli residents are taking shelter as Palestinian rockets rain down on the country's southern cities. These latest attacks come after the deadliest day of violence yesterday. Rescue crews in Gaza were still combing through rubble last night, looking for survivors of a morning bombing where 3 buildings were hit over the course of 5 minutes. This while Israel's emergency service system reported direct hits in 2 major cities, including one to a synagogue. Israel says Hamas has fired nearly 3,000 missiles in their direction since last Monday. In a televised address yesterday, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu insisted the attacks would continue at, quote, full force. The Gaza Health Ministry says at least 197 people have been killed since the violence began, including 58 children. Israel has reported 10 deaths, with 2 being children.
David Ignatius, you wrote about this movingly a few days ago. This is a nightmare. There's a cycle of violence that seems to continue every 4, 5, 6 years. And in this case, there are dark political overtones to this tragedy. And I am surprised that in the United States, which the United States coverage usually bends pro-Israel. I think we can all say that. Generally, it has through the years. There seems to be an agreement among most analysts and foreign policy leaders that this is a political crisis in part because the only two winners out of this are Benjamin Netanyahu and Hamas. And both of them, their credibility was strained on both sides. So as this tragedy continues and people continue to die disproportionately on the Palestinian side, but on both sides, there are tragedies on both sides. The only people winning from this politically are Netanyahu and Hamas.
I think that's the hardest part about this, Joe, is that civilians, as in every war I've ever covered, are the ones who pay the worst price, and that's happening on both sides with Palestinian civilians in Gaza. The numbers of dead and wounded are just terrible to read, and Israeli civilians. The attacks on Tel Aviv, the rocket attacks, really upset Israelis. They felt that was crossing a red line. That's their major population center. I talked, Joe, to administration officials overnight to ask what are they doing about this terrible tragedy. And the answer is what you'd expect. They're working behind the scenes for a ceasefire. They know that as long as Prime Minister Netanyahu is determined to continue and try to get as much gain on the ground as he can, this is not likely to end. There are a lot of people in key positions who were around for the last Gaza war in 2014. That lasted 51 days. We're 1 week into this one. So there's a recognition this may take a while. There's a lot of talk in the administration about beginning to think about a post-conflict humanitarian reconstruction. I almost want to say a reset for Gaza. Gaza is one of the saddest places I've ever visited. It's just so many people packed together, so much suffering, people just trapped. Extremists seem to be the only political leaders that have any staying power in Gaza. So there's this hope that somehow over time you begin to get more responsible authorities in Gaza, get money to new groups. That was the hope back in 2014. Let's empower Egypt. Let's empower the Palestinian Authority. Let's bring the Palestinian moderates into Gaza to challenge Hamas. And you know what? It didn't work at all. But they're thinking those same ideas again. But there's a recognition, Joe, that our ability to influence the situation now is very limited.
Well, David, that's striking considering how much money and aid we give to Israel. I'm surprised and I support that aid. So I'm not talking. I've been pro-Israeli for my entire life, but we give them aid. And you say that and Netanyahu is saying this is going to continue for some time. It's a no-win proposition if you support Israel and you support Israel's standing not only in the Middle East but across the globe. It's a no-win proposition for them to claim they're going after a Hamas leader and kill 8 or 9 children. Say they're going after a Hamas leader or 2 or some offices and knock down the site where the Associated Press and Al Jazeera and other news agencies are reporting out of. That is a no-win proposition for the people of Israel. That is a no-win proposition for Israel diplomatically across Europe and the globe. The only person that helps is Benjamin Netanyahu. Do we have no ability as a country to reach in and stop this senseless killing? Because there is no end game here. Everybody knows there is no end game here. Just more dead Palestinians and more dead Israeli citizens. While, as you've said before, Israelis and Arabs fighting inside of Israel now create a new dangerous dynamic.
Joe, I just make 2 points. I think it's entirely true that the United States and the world shouldn't feel powerless to affect these terrible events where there's so much human suffering. but the Israeli government feels when the rockets began to land on Israeli cities that an absolute harsh punitive response was necessary, and it was necessary to degrade the infrastructure, the tunnels, the command and control that made that possible. So this is a scenario we've seen over and over. I do think Israelis make mistakes sometimes in their attempts to protect their security. I watched one of the biggest, I think, in modern history, the Israeli invasion of Lebanon in 1982. I was a correspondent in Beirut watching the Israeli army roll in, and that created a nightmare. It essentially created Hezbollah as a political organization, created a security problem that continues to this day. So decisions that people make under pressure aren't always right. The problem, as somebody who's looked at the Middle East for so long, is that moderate opinion on which you could build a settlement that would last is getting shattered on all sides. The Palestinian Authority under Mahmoud Abbas is corrupt, it's weak. It was so weak it couldn't hold elections that were scheduled for this year because there were no moderates who'd win. They would simply have enfranchised the most extreme Hamas people in many areas. So somehow you've got to have something there to build on, and that's the work of years and decades. Unfortunately, during the Trump years, the U.S. checked out of that process. We gave up what had been an attempt to be the even-handed broker, the country that could talk to all sides. We gave that up, and I think Biden, Tony Blinken, and State are trying to rebuild that, but it's going to take a while.